This is J. Krishnamurti's 13th discussion with students in Malibu, California, 1969.
Last week, the last thing that we discussed was the question of energy, I believe, and I was wondering about the relationship between mental energy and physical energy, and I just wanted to go into the question of energy more, if we could.
So we need energy to change, to do anything. Especially when we are surrounded by a society, by a culture that really depletes our energy.
How does it do this? I mean, why do you say that the society around us depletes our energy?
Dispersion, conflict, amusement, complications.
When society or ourselves are in a state of constant conflict. So conflict is dissipation of energy. And we need energy to change. Great deal of energy. So how do we gather this energy? Any well-established habit, maybe to change it, to break it down, to transform it, to completely go beyond. It requires a great deal of not only mental but also physical energy. So how do we get this energy? No, but you mean how not to get it?
How not to dissipate it, like you said last week, that
Yes.
assuming or interpreting and imagining dissipated energy.
Or else put it any way you like, whether not to dissipate it, but to accumulate it, to have it. How does one set about it?
It seems that one can go about trying to accumulate physical energy, but that seems to dissipate mental energy.
No. After all, one needs physical energy. And if one is weak and unhealthy, eating bad food or badly nourished, obviously one has very little energy. So one has to have not only physical energy, organic energy, but also a quality of energy of the mind, the brain, which sees and changes, drives through, goes to the very end of certain things. How do we come by this energy? Shall we start not by the mental energy and then come to physical energy, not the other way around? Because most people, one can have fairly good physical energy.
What if one is old? I mean, What if one is over 50, say?
Now, take yourself and my, let's start not somebody outside. We need a great deal of mental energy to change, to observe, to understand and so on. One needs energy, one needs attention, one needs awareness. Now, how do we come by this energy? The good old formula was suppress. Don't, no sex, no, get up very early in the morning. You know what I mean? Drive. That way you hope to gather energy, which all involves conflict. Right? And that obviously is a waste of energy, conflict. When the monk or the businessman or the lazy person says, I must get up in the morning at exactly 8 o'clock and drives himself to get up at 8 o'clock, it's a waste of energy. But yet to get up at 8 o'clock without conflict and therefore have more energy. After all, if a writer whose aim is to write, but through writing to achieve success, fame, a lot of money, with it goes fear, anxiety, not being able to come to the very top, competition, all those are wastes of energy, aren't they, after all? And his writing becomes more and more brittle, not so elegant, not so fine, all that business. So, however, how is one to have this energy? It's really quite an enormous problem. It's just a trick. Not bursts of energy, but constant, steady, driving energy, mentally. What do you say about it? Not to have moods, that's a waste of energy. Not to talk endlessly about nothing. Chattering away about mentally, soliloquy, keep going, get into a habit of counting, steps, and people get all kinds of fanciful. It's really very important question, I have a lot of energy for this. Does it depend on the physical state? Or is it independent of physical state? Of course, if you have cancer or, if you have very grave disease, that's quite a different problem. But does this energy depend on a physical well-being? Or is it somewhat independent of it? answers. If that energy is dependent on good physical health, any slight illness, any physical disturbance makes that energy diminish. And so we are caught in this imbalance. Right? Aren't we? Or it has nothing to do with physical energy as well as mental energy. It's energy quite different from either.
From either physical or mental.
Amen. Go into yourself, explore it, go on, drive through what I'm doing. I mean, you know people who've got plenty of mental energy in spite of their physical illnesses, ailments. They are, they might have ulcers, they might have this or that, but minor aches and minor, ailments. But they have got plenty of mental energy. And those who have great deal of physical energy need not necessarily have the other. You know, both these types. So does this energy depend on any of this? I'm sure you have been ill. I'm not wishing you, but one has been ill. With that illness, does this ordinary mental illness, energy, does it diminish?
It seems to, with
If it does, it is dependent on the physical. Therefore, one has to keep the physical organism extraordinarily healthy, watchful. Right? That means careful diet, right exercise, go to bed early, and whole thing. And is one willing to do all that, such restraint without effort, so that you have abundance of mental energy?
Is the question of the dissipation of sexual energy also involved in this?
Go into it, search it out. Or after all, if one goes to bed very late after a hard day's work, any kind of physical work, and next day you feel slightly unwell, slightly out of gear. So one has to have very good, balanced, regular day, a regular life. Exercise, good diet, a balanced diet, not rich diet or a luxurious diet, balanced diet. And when that comes really it's quite an extraordinary problem, this, you see. I mean, when one talks, one gestures a great deal. Is that a waste of energy? The Italians have got a great deal of energy, those birds. And they're talking endlessly with their hands, like the whole East does that. Talking with their hands, with their eyes, with their they're alive. And so if you arranged one's life healthily, would you have the mental energy which has a different quality altogether? Not the mental energy of a businessman, of a writer, or it has to be something different. Otherwise, just a bourgeois vitality, which is nothing at all. So how do you set about this? Go on, sir. And if you say, well, I must not do this, and the body demands it, you follow, nervously, and there is a conflict, therefore there is dissipation. How do you bring all this about into order so that you have different quality of energy altogether? I mean, a man who goes to the office every day for 40 years, my God, day after day, he's got plenty of energy, extraordinary amount of energy. I couldn't do it. He sits up late, and, drinks and all kinds of things he does, and yet he has enough energy to go to the office, work a little bit, probably not so efficiently, but works to earn enough livelihood, money and so on, carries on. Surely we need a different kind of energy than that. Or the monks who have so trained their body. Get up 2 o'clock in the morning, those monks. Pray, do all kinds of things, then work in the garden, cultivate the olives or the orchard or wine or whatever they do in Italy. All the people. And the energy that young people have.
Is it a question of having a different kind of energy, or putting the same energy to a better use?
Look, find out, so go into it, see. If the same energy, if you use the same energy for better use, what's the better use? How do you use it for the better purpose? What's the better purpose? Or are we approaching the problem altogether wrongly? We say don't have a little bit of sex, don't, too much of it, dissipate your energy. Then they say eat right food, control yourself, don't smoke, don't drink, do this and do that, all repressive measures, right? And those repressive measures are a great deal of wastage of energy, right?
Isn't there a type of control without conflict?
Obviously, there must be. There is.
I mean, in terms of saying suppressing something or controlling it.
I learn about it. I see what it is. So we went to it the other day. Now I want to get at something else. Let's proceed. It has nothing to do with any of this at all. I don't know if you follow what I mean. There must obviously be a certain physical orderly living, obvious, without any effort, and getting up in the morning without driving the body. I don't know if you have ever experimented with this. That is, the body has its own intelligence. To awaken that intelligence without the interference of will, make it do something it should do. I don't know if you, or not do. I mean, we eat food according to our taste and pleasure. And so, all the problem involved in all that. I don't know if you ever tried it, to see if the body can function on its own intelligence without the interference of the pleasure of thought introduced into it. I don't know. Do you understand what I'm talking about?
That's not something that you should really try. You either do it or you don't.
Yes, that's just it. So if the body can function on its own intelligence, one has solved a great many problems. But that bodily intelligence is denied when there is the appetite of pleasure is active. I want special wine, I want meat, I want this kind of meat, and hot food, all things. So gradually the intelligence of the body is destroyed by the demands of the tongue, taste. I don't know if you have noticed it. So that the body becomes extraordinarily sensitive. So you can leave the body alone after establishing the right food, the right way of allowing the body to have it. Then we can move to something else, which is the mind. Whether the mind can have this abundance of energy which isn't brought about through conflict. When one is in conflict, like in war, like in business, like competition, it has its own energy. I don't know, this one you knows. Or the energy one has when there is fear. Run away from it, do something, that. So can there be, in one way, there are so many different kinds of energy, or is it all one energy? Which by tradition, by custom, by habit, by conditioning is wasted in a society, in a culture which says you must compete, otherwise you'll be finished. Make a success of your life. Be somebody, and therefore you struggle. In that, there is a great deal of wastage of energy, because there is the energy of fear of not being able to, driving your capacity, all that may be a waste of energy, though it produces a different kind of energy, right? So, what? So can there be energy which has totally different quality? I mean, the wastage of energy in relationship. Most people's relationships are a battle. Right? Therefore, relationship becomes a great wastage of energy, the wrong kind of relationship. When you and I fight because we have images about each other, and which we call relationship, that's a waste of energy. And it's a wastage of energy when the observer separates himself from the thing observed. I don't know. Anything that divides obviously is a wastage of energy, no? Also, so it comes to a point one sees all this and says, is there energy which feeds itself and is not dependent? Do you get what I mean? It feeds upon itself and therefore becomes more and more and more vital and not dependent on the physical or the capacity to see things very clearly, and so not confused, not miserable, not unhappy, not suffering. So, And there, basically the activity of the ego, the me, the self, is an isolating process. My house, my family, my quality, my character, my children, my job, my development, my capacity, you follow? I want to be the greatest success in the world, or in my field, or in my particular place, and so on. That's all the activity of the self, which creates its extraordinary energy. That's what's happening in the world. That's what we have. That energy is an isolating process, right? And dividing. It divides. Now, when that activity of the dividing process comes to an end, what is the other quality of energy which is not isolating, which is not dividing, which is not wishing to become, be, all that business? Have you ever tried sitting absolutely quiet, physically quiet, without twitching, without, opening, shutting your eyes and looking around, just be completely quiet? And also, for the mind not to chatter, not to soliloquize or to think, talk to itself, all that, just to be completely quiet. I think from that comes quite a different quality of energy. I think that when one has that energy, it changes, then it's finished.
Problem with energy, with me, comes in where when I don't even have the energy to want to do that. I mean, where I get to where I'm so dead, so to speak.
Tired out.
And sometimes I do this type of thing, and I have much energy in that direction, and then other times it just completely.
Then leave it alone. When you have that energy, well, let it operate. When there isn't, just be quiet. But say, I must have that, struggle after it. You follow?
I see.
Can we discuss somewhat the division between ourself and between the observer and the observed? Say, as an example, I can look at my hands and realize that they're different. That here's my hand and here's me. But I also have this complete oneness feeling about the hand being a part of me. It is me. I can look at other objects.
So are you aware of the observer? When you look at those flowers or anything, are you aware that an observer is looking at those flowers?
No.
Huh?
No.
Then what is looking at those flowers? Apart from the visual look, huh? Who is looking at those flowers? You understand my question, sir? Am I making myself clear? Now, who is that the observer? Who has a mental image of what that flower is, the knowledge, the botanical, all the rest of it. Says, that entity looks at that flower. What is the observer? And when is the observer conscious of himself as observing? Or we take it for granted there is an observer, huh? And don't much pay attention to it. Just watch and pass by. When are we aware of the observer? Are we ever aware of it?
There are times that when I think I am, but those are introspective times. When you catch yourself, let's say you're sitting just quiet, and then something pops up and you realize you're sitting quiet. And at those times, sometimes the question appears, well, what's popping up and what's catching myself being quiet? It's those times that I feel you're sort of, I think you're glimpsing at this observer, or there's an idea of an observer which isn't very clear. But it's only at those moments. When you look at something else, then generally you don't have any feeling of observing.
So do the experiment. When you look at me or at somebody, or those flowers in the rain and the trees, rain-soaked trees, are you aware that you are the observer looking at all of us?
No.
When does that observer become aware that he is observing?
When I reach back into something to pull out an image about you.
Go into it, I'm not sure you. No, go explore it. Let's explore it a bit.
It seems like pleasure or pain, that kind of thinking enters into it, and then you're aware that you're...
And there's an action with regard to what you see.
When thought, I think.
Mental action with regard to what you see.
Just wondering if anybody is aware of the observer at all. You go into it a little bit, don't give explanations yet, answer it. Am I aware of as being the observer? When I experience something, this terrible rain that's going on, and I say, experience that, is the experiencer, which is the observer and so on, is he aware that he's experiencing this? Or we say, oh, beastly rain, and finished. I mean,
Yes, it's always about the thing experienced.
See what an extraordinary... what is this observer? Observer, is he conscious of himself? Or we are never conscious of us as ourselves, as the observer. What do you say, sir? I'm jealous of you. That feeling of anger, jealous, wanted to hurt you, I'm angry. When I become conscious of it, that I'm jealous, experience it. When I say I am jealous and watch it, you not just say, well, I hate you, or I want to hit you, or I feel depressed about it, lonely and all, but just observe that I am jealous as the observer. You follow me? Is the observer aware of itself that he is jealous? I don't know if I'm...
He's already taken another step from being jealous when he begins to examine the thing that he's observing, or rather he begins to examine the thing that he's observing.
Now my question, is the observer aware that he is observing?
Or is he aware that he's jealous, you asked?
And
Or
that's
is
a
he-
different
Is he
matter.
aware of himself as being jealous?
That's
Or
a
is he
different
just
matter.
automatically doing something, acting it out?
I'm asking if I am aware, if the observer is aware of himself as observing.
Sir, are you talking about just like if I observe a car, let's say just very ordinary, a car
A car
driving
going,
by.
yeah.
Okay, and then here I am observing the car, and now am I aware of myself observing this car at the
That's
same
it.
time?
That's how you
But in
aware
the same-
of yourself as the observer looking at the car.
Now, are you talking about in the same way that I'm observing this car, am I observing myself?
Anything.
No, is there an
Or-
observer at all when the car goes by?
Yeah, that's...
Or you just
Or
look at the car
afterwards
go
do you
by
say
and
there was
that's
an
a-
observer
That's a
because-
Mercedes, that's a whatever it is.
I don't think so. I don't think there is.
There's a historical
In other
entity
words-
which calls itself an observer afterwards, and before which is assumed to have existed all that
My
time.
tradition, my family, my follow all that business, the culture in which, and so on, so on, so on. I'm just asking, is the observer?
Rheumatism, I think he's got. I'll look that's changing. I think his leg is hurting.
This rain upsets you.
Yes, the rain upsets him. You're asking if there is an observer at all.
No, I'm asking,
When the car goes by.
is the observer aware that he's observing?
No.
No, there is an observer.
If I'm standing on a cliff and I'm looking at the ocean and so forth, and I'm caught up in this, in the action of observing this, I'm not aware of it. It's happening, and then
Yeah.
and then I say, oh, this is beautiful. This is,
Yeah.
and I start thinking about what is happening. Immediately, I'm no longer the observer of that which I was observing. I'm now in an examination of myself after the fact. So while it was happening, I wasn't at all conscious of myself as an observer.
Then when are you conscious of yourself?
Because while I was an observer, I wasn't examining anything. I wasn't questioning anything.
Yeah, no, you're just observing.
I was observing. So it's when you start questioning, when your mind begins some activity.
So what I'm asking is, I may be wrong question, just exploring. Can thought look at itself thinking? Can thought look at itself?
Can thought be the object of observation?
Can the mind observe its own thought? Can my mind observe itself being jealous? One says I'm jealous and does, but to be observe that, you know what I mean? Observe jealousy, its own.
Can you observe yourself in the business of being jealous?
Yes.
Right at the very moment.
Moment, of course, not after or yes. Then it becomes some other process. When he said just now, who is the observer? You follow? What is the observer? Why is there a division between the observer and the thing observed? I want to find out who is the observer. What is the observer? Is the observer aware of himself observing?
There are times when you're sitting quiet that it seems like you can see thoughts come as they come. Now, who is seeing those thoughts come? Is that just another thought that's on the side, seeing this other thought
yeah.
pop up? Or is that the observer that is that such a thing as the observer?
Sir, there's a difference, isn't there, between having sort of an awareness of the way I am like upon.
So let's begin very simply. Why is there a division between that flower which I see and the entity that says that is different from that flower? Why is there this division, this space, this sense of separateness? Obviously there is. I am not that flower. That flower is different from me. So why is there this division?
I don't understand what should be.
I'm not saying what should be. Why is there a division? I see you. Obviously, physically we are different. You are a student, I am not. You live somewhere else, I live somewhere else. There is a division between us. Not only physically, but psychologically, inwardly. Why? What causes this division? Is it the observer that causes the division? The observer being my prejudices, my conditioning, my knowledge, my image of myself, my culture, my occupation, my worries, and so on, so on, so on. All that is the me.
But that surely doesn't cause the difference between you physically, for example.
Then what causes the difference?
Physical difference is there. I mean, we've got 4 arms, so 2 belong to you and 2 belong to me.
Of course.
But there we are different, aren't we? The me, as you say, like your me and my me, in that way.
Why is there this difference? Why is there this division? My culture, which I can throw off tomorrow, it's nothing. Superficial affair, I can brush it off. And then would this division come to an end?
Yeah, there's a lot more than culture.
Yeah, I'm just culture, my temperament, my peculiarity, my prejudices, my conditioning, my capacity. Those are all very, very superficial. At least to me, they're frightfully superficial.
Of course, again, the psychological difference between you, he is a student and you're not.
No, go on. I brush all that aside. And then is there still a difference, a division? And all that may be the observer who says, I am different. And so brings about a division between himself and myself. I am superior. I know more. And that makes me feel I am different from him. And if all that goes away, which is very superficial and fairly easily to be thrown off, then does the division come to an end? Division in the sense that I can't be him and he can't be me. Obviously. I can't become that flower and say, well, I'm a flower.
Is it so easy? You say it's so easy.
Oh, yes, for God's sake.
Why is it though that I can form a division on myself, my hands, my arms. I can form all these types of divisions. But yet I don't get bound up by those divisions. I mean, I physically know the difference between my hands and my feet.
Of course,
the same type of physical difference between me and yourself. But I don't have the psychological difference between my hands and my feet.
When we say, after all, the observer, this me or this culture, the conditioning, the knowledge, this whole bundle which is me, the observer, does he make the division?
Well, certainly if I really felt that this me or myself was everything, then there'd be no division.
No, I can't be everything.
Well,
I can't be Mr. Rockefeller.
no.
Or Mr. Nixon. I don't want to be, but I mean, I can't be.
Right, but I also can't be my hand.
No, don't reduce the hand. So what is this observer, and does he create the division? I'm a Hindu or an American or a communist. When I assert something that I am, I make the division. I am a communist, you are a bourgeois. You are a capitalist, I am a state worshipper.
But that's not artificial division.
Huh?
But that's an unnecessary division.
What do you mean? That's in which I've been brought up.
Well, but I mean that if
That's my life.
you'd been brought up somewhere else, you'd have a different.
I understand, but that's my life. I'm conditioned that way. I have my temperament. I'm moody, jealous, anxious, fearful, moody.
Mhm.
And all those things cause division. My nationality, I'm a Jew, you're a Christian, Gentile. Oh God. Or basically, there may be no division at all.
Except in the physical sense.
Except physically. You got larger head than I have, you're taller than me. Well, all right, be larger head and taller. So is that what divides us? And therefore we are against each other. You follow what I mean? And is love a state in which there is no division? I call it love or some other name, it doesn't matter. It's very interesting, Huh? To find, first of all, to find the observer and see all the things that go to make the observer. What I mean, my nationality, my culture, my temperament, character, all that, and go beyond it. And what is that? And then is there an observer there? The observer is only when he says, I love you and I'm going to hold you. You are mine, I'm going to dominate you, you dominate and all the rest of it.
And this state of division is the dissipation of energy.
Obviously. So can the mind live without division? Huh. I have to go to office. I have to work there, not feel this division, not feel this ambitious drive, competition, but work without all the awful things around the work. The hierarchy of officials about the work, work. And probably I work much better than any of them because I have no problems. You know what I mean? I work. That's it. Finding what energy is. Right? Which is in the quality of the organic organ of the energy of the organ, or of the energy of brain, or of the mind. It is this quality. Which sees division is not of it, right?
Got this.
Is that enough? Come all that way in this rain and just an hour. Pay for your money, get your money's worth. No, it's really quite interesting, this. At least for me, I found something. Were you able to come over easily? You came last no.
Yeah, what?
You came last night?
Yeah, this morning.
Arrived this morning.
Wasn't easy.
Drove all through the night.
You made it through the washout between Ventura and Santa Barbara today by going.
Is there a washout on the main road?
Yes, on the main road, but he made it through there by going on side roads and stuff. I didn't know that it could be done.
God.
And it turns out that the road from Ojai wasn't really washed out either. Completely.
How are you going to get back, Tom?
Yeah, that's what I'm wondering.
Oh, I'll drive back and see if the road's open. If not, I'll stop somewhere.
It took place here.
Beyond consciousness.
It took place here if you had followed it.
It didn't take place here.
No, it happened. So look, he asked the question, how is one to have energy for change and all that? By looking at it very, very closely and seeing what the observer is, which he brought it in, and exploring all this without any bias, without any conclusion. You follow it? Just let it develop and observe it. Out of that, we saw perhaps there may be an energy which is not merely physical or the energy of the observer, right? And I think that perception of something which is not is explored.
Freedom.
Yes,
Wow.
call it what you like. It is free. I mean, more, not more, when one is really free, there is quite a different energy.
It is another plane.
Another dimension altogether.